In 1950, two brothers cutting peat in a bog near Tollund, Denmark, uncovered a human face staring up at them from the dark water. The skin was intact, the features were recognizable. The man appeared to have been dead for perhaps a few years. He lay on his side in a sleeping position, wearing a pointed leather cap and a braided leather noose tight around his neck. The brothers called the police, who called the local museum. The museum confirmed what the peat cutters could not have guessed. The man had been dead for roughly 2,300 years. This was Tollund Man, one of the most famous of the European bog bodies, a category of archaeological finds so extraordinary that it has no real parallel anywhere else in the world. Peatlands in Denmark, Ireland, the Netherlands, Germany, and Britain have produced hundreds of preserved human remains dating from the Bronze Age through the medieval period, many of them in a condition so remarkable that the pores of their skin, the lines on their fingerprints, and the contents of their last meals are still identifiable. The preservation is chemistry, not miracle. Sphagnum moss, the dominant plant in peat bogs, releases acids that tan human skin, much like leather, while simultaneously creating an anaerobic, antimicrobial environment that prevents decay. The same process that turns dead plants into peat turns dead people into something approaching permanence. Bones often dissolve in the acidic water, leaving soft tissue intact but flexible, like a deflated version of the original person. Hair survives, but often turns red from the tannins, regardless of its original color. What makes the bog bodies historically significant is not just their preservation, but the way many of them died. A disproportionate number show signs of violent, deliberate, and sometimes elaborate killing. Tollund Man was hanged. Grauballe Man, found 2 years later in another Danish bog, had his throat cut from ear to ear. Lindow Man, discovered in a peat bog in Cheshire, England in 1984, had been struck on the head twice, garrotted with a knotted cord, and had his throat cut before being placed face down in the bog. Old Croghan Man, found in Ireland in 2003, had holes cut through his upper arms through which a rope of hazel withies was threaded. His nipples were sliced, and he had been cut in half across the torso. The pattern of multiple killing methods applied to a single individual, what scholars call overkill, suggests ritual rather than punishment or murder. The Roman historian Tacitus, writing in the 1st century, described Germanic peoples executing criminals and social outcasts by pressing them into bogs under hurdles of wicker. But the care taken with many bog bodies, the placement, the preservation of clothing and personal items, and the geographic consistency of the practice across Northern Europe over centuries suggests something more systematic than criminal disposal. The leading interpretation among archaeologists is that many bog bodies were human sacrifices, offerings to gods or spirits associated with the wetlands, boundaries, and the transition between the living world and whatever lay beneath. Bogs in Iron Age Northern Europe were liminal spaces, neither solid ground nor open water, places where the normal rules of the physical world seemed suspended. Depositing a person in such a place, killed by multiple means, perhaps to satisfy multiple deities or to ensure the death was thorough enough to be irrevocable, fits the pattern of ritual offering found in other aspects of Iron Age religion. The stomach contents provide additional evidence. Tollund Man's last meal was a porridge made from seeds and grains, including barley, flax, and the seeds of over 40 different wild plants. It was nutritionally poor and deliberately assembled, not a normal meal, but possibly a ritual preparation. Lindow Man had consumed a griddle cake that included mistletoe pollen, a plant with deep sacred associations in Celtic and Germanic religion. Not all bog bodies are sacrifices. Some show no signs of violence and may have been accidental drownings, victims of murder, or people buried in the bog for practical reasons. The challenge is distinguishing between ritual killing, judicial execution, and ordinary violence when the only evidence is a body that has been lying in acidic water for 2 millennia. What the bog bodies offer, uniquely, is the face of the ancient past. Egyptian mummies are wrapped and distant. Skeletal remains require reconstruction. But a bog body looks like a person. Tollund Man's expression is peaceful, eyes closed, lips slightly pursed, as though he fell asleep and never woke up. That immediacy is what makes the bog bodies so powerful and so unsettling. They collapse the distance between now and then, and they force us to look directly at people who lived and died in a world we can barely comprehend.